So if you're constantly getting strains in your groins or your hip flexors after you run or play a sport like football, here's what's actually going on, and here's 5 exercises that help me fix this for good. So we're going to start off with the Copenhagen Plank. This is a great way to build strength in the adductors instead of just passive stretching and hoping for the best. So if you've never done this before, start off with your knee on the bench, and we're going to lie in a side plank position. So my knee, hips, shoulders are all in the same line, and I've just got my elbow under my shoulder. Then from here I'm going to push my knee into the bench, lifting my hips off the floor. And I'm just going to hold, start off with 30-second hold each side. See how that feels over time. Build up to 45-second hold with each leg. And the key is just to focus on your breathing. Big inhales, long exhales. As you can see, I'm shaking like mad, because this really does drive a lot of tension onto the adductors. Over time, once you start to get a little bit stronger, you can work your way down to your foot, and this is going to be a lot more tension onto the groin. But once you can hit 3 45-second holds each time, you're pretty much golden. You shouldn't, really shouldn't ever be getting groin strains again. This is a hip airplane. It looks pretty simple, but it's a really great exercise for building stability and rotation into the hips. Because as we know, if you run, you're not always running in a straight line. So you need that stability in your hips when you're changing direction. So you'll need a bar or something to hold on to for stability. Get your hands nice and wide, okay? It just helps give you a better base for balance. And then from here, I'm gonna kick one leg back, okay? It helps me with my balance. If I bring my left arm over my head, I'll kick my left leg back. Now, break this up into 2 movements. So kick back first, so your glutes are turned on, and then I'm just turning my knee out. Hold, and then turn back in. It's actually the leg that you're standing on is the one that you're working. Because as you can see, when I turn my knee out, this hip here is getting opened up, and then I'm keeping that control as I rotate back in. Keeping your leg slightly bent makes it a little bit easier. If you want to progress it on, you can just try and get the leg a little bit straighter. But just make sure you're keeping control throughout the movement. I would aim for 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps each side. So this is a kettlebell hip flexor raise. If you've been sitting all day, then you're going for a run later, and you feel that your hip flexors, this is the area at the top front of your thigh, are niggling. It's not just tightness, it's weakness, okay? And this exercise is great for training the hip flexor in the shorter range, which is going to increase circulation into the area, which is going to help kickstart the healing process and start undoing any damage that's already been done. So you're going to need something to elevate one foot and then hook the other foot into a kettlebell. And then from here, we're bringing our knee up to hip level, pause, and slowly control back down. And I'm just going to let this hip sink down at the bottom, so I'm getting a little bit of an extra stretch at the end of the rep. This does look like a simple exercise, but it is hard enough, to be fair. Just make sure when we get to the top of each rep, we're holding for a second or 2, just to get a little bit more tension in the short range. I'll show you the other leg. I would aim, you don't need to do this every day, but aim to do 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps at least twice a week, and make sure you're keeping your toe curled back just so the kettlebell doesn't slip off the foot. If you are running or playing any sport and you notice that there's one side that niggles more than the other, which is usually the case, the chances are you're going to find that same side a little bit more challenging. So make sure you're using a weight that you can hit the 8 to 10 reps both sides fairly comfortably, and then over time you can build the weight up both sides same time. So if you don't have access to the kettlebell, no bother. This is an LSIT, and it's going to train the hip flexor in that shorter range, just like the kettlebell hip flexor raise would. But what's so great is, as I said, you don't need any equipment, so you can literally do it anywhere, even at home. So all you need to do is sit in your butt, keep your legs straight, and then from here, I'm going to lift one leg up off the floor and hold. Now I'm not just passively holding this leg in the air, I'm actually trying to push my foot up to drive as much tension onto the hip flexor as possible. As you can see, my legs shaking like mad here. I'll try and hold for 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, you're going to switch your leg and hold the other side. Now, to make this harder, stay upright. If that's too much, just lean back a little bit. That's going to make it a wee bit easier. And then over time, as you build strength in your hip flexor, you can start to walk up to a taller position. And I would aim to do this 2 rounds of 20 seconds each leg. Try and hit this a couple of times a week if you can. So this is the ATG split squat. We just trained the hip flexors in the shorter range, which, as we spoke about, is great for promoting blood flow into the area, which is going to speed up the healing process. But now we're going to train the hip flexors in the longer range, which is essentially just going to bulletproof your hips from any other injuries in the future. So when you're starting off with this, keep your foot elevated, either on a box or a bench, whatever's fine. And we're going to hold this split squat position. So from here, I want to get nice and tall, so I'm lifting my chest up, then I'm pushing this knee over the toe, trying to keep this rear leg a little bit straighter. What we don't want to do is, as this knee comes over the toe, bend at the knee, so I'm dropping this knee down to the floor. Try and keep it straighter and the hips forward, and that's really going to open the hip flexor up. Over time, how you'll progress this is just work the lower box, and then eventually you can finish with a full ATG split squat with both feet on the floor. But of course, this is going to require a lot more mobility. The lower this leg is to the floor, the harder it's going to be. So just gradually progress it. Never try and sacrifice form just to get lower. Whatever range we're using, even if we're using, you can eventually move into dumbbells, even if we're on the floor, we just want to be making sure that we're keeping our chest up so we're nice and tall, and just control through the movement as I push the knee over the toe, pause, and come out with control. Aim to do this at least once a week for 8 reps each leg. If you have the time to do so, build up to twice a week. You don't need to do all 5 of these every session. Just rotate them a few times a week and try and stick with it as best as you can. I lost a full season to groin pain, but building strength and rotation like this is what actually got me back onto the pitch. And if you want to go further with your progressions and follow an actual plan, it's all going to be inside our new program, Athlete Foundations. That's where I'm going to be helping my community build long-lasting strength. The link's in the description if you want to check it out. Cheers for watching. Let me know how you get on in the comments.